Welcome everyone to another episode of Red and Blacks TV. In this episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about the Roma and AC Milan game. Now, for some of these games I've just been reporting, I do plan on changing the tone a bit and just having a little bit of a chat with you guys and kind of keeping it a little bit more personal instead of just a sports reporting type of theme. I'm sure with the reports and everything like that, we can find that almost anywhere. We can read the news ourselves, so I don't have to come here and sit here and just kind of repeat the news. So I do want to get a little bit more opinionated about the team, a little bit less factual based, more on my own thoughts and whatever the fuck I think is going on with AC Milan. So first things first, congratulations, AC Milan. We won another game. We're looking fucking fantastic so far. 3 games, 3 wins. Our attack is looking perfect. Our defense, we'll talk about that a little bit. Our midfield and offense have been definitely dominant so far this season. Our defense still a little shaky, but we have a big match against Inter Milan coming up, and that's going to be a crucial battle. So now, first things first, I did end up going to the actual game in Rome with AC Milan versus Roma at the Stadio Olimpico, and that itself was a wonderful experience. Personally, I've been lucky enough to go to 5 games now for AC Milan throughout the years, my first one being in 2016. Now, I do try to make every 1 or 2 seasons, I try to go at least to one AC Milan game. Just a brief story about the game itself. First of all, when you go to Roma and when you go to the stadium, it is a little bit difficult to get there. There is a bus system that eventually brings you close enough to where you have to walk. But if you're taking the metro, you can only really go so far. And then from there, it's about a 45-minute walk to the stadium. 45 minutes to an hour, actually. And now, as you're walking to the stadium, you have some great places to eat. Like, obviously, the great Italian, like sandwiches and focaccia bread. You have places to grab a drink. And if you're on vacation in Italy, you're already probably having wine for lunch and another beer as a snack. So by the time I actually got to that metro stop and started walking, ended up stopping in another couple places, having drinks before the game. And then by the time I got to the stadium, I was, I don't want to say fully drunk, but quite tipsy by the time I was walking around trying to find my seat. Now, finding your seat is a little bit difficult, especially in some of these Italian stadiums. It's not direct. Some of these stadiums are made like 100 years ago, so I don't know how to explain it, but the pathways are not really so clear on where you're supposed to be sitting and all this shit. And obviously, if you don't understand Italian, it makes it even that much harder. Luckily enough, as I'm running to find the seat for the kickoff, obviously a little bit drunk, happened to run into some French dude who was also looking for the same section, and luckily found the seats before the teams came out. So that was crucial. I wanted to see the kickoff, obviously. So we get to the seats, and now I was there by myself, so that makes it even more difficult because you're a little bit drunk and then you're trying to pay attention to the game, but everything's a little bit woozy and blurry and there's mad noise and there's only Roma fans next to me at that point. So the whole first half, I'm trying my hardest to pay attention, but I'm like, the drunk level is coming down, the fatigue is kicking in, I'm like dozing in and out, which kind of really sucked because the tickets were 270 euros, so you don't want to fucking spend 270 euros for a ticket, which was great seats, obviously, and then be drunk and not really being able to fully pay attention to the game. Needless to say, the first half was not so great in regards to that. But by the time the second half came around, I was fully attentive. I was able to catch everything. The Leão goal, though, I must say this was probably the most upsetting thing as I'm sitting there in the stadium. AC Milan is attacking on the side of the field where my seat was, and I'm only a few rows back. I look down for 1 second. I look back up, and the goal was already scored, and I missed the fucking bicycle kick of Leão in person. So that in itself was disappointing. Everybody was reacting hugely, and I'm like, okay, it must have been a great goal. And when I looked back at the highlights after the match, trust me, I was definitely sick that I've drank that much before the game. Now, my next AC Milan game that I go to, I'm not going to be drinking that heavily before the match. Maybe during the game I'll order a couple of beers as they come around, but I'm definitely not going to be going into that match tipsy and trying to pay attention at the same time. Now, after that, going into the actual tactics of the game. So the midfield, once again, I think that has been a wonderful showing for us in the first 3 matches. Is our midfield with Loftus-Cheek, Reinders, and even Krunic showing up in front of the defense and allowing Loftus-Cheek and Reinders to roam a little bit freely has been wonderful to see. On top of that, it's not even just those 3 guys. It's our tactics where Pioli attacks with a left back and a right back coming into the midfield and creating like a 5 midfield set almost with our right and left backs. It's just been a complete turnaround of some of the matches that we've seen last season from the midfield where we left a lot of gaps. We weren't able to recover, and we'd be very open to counterattacks. Loftus-Cheek on his own has been wonderful on the defensive phase and on the offensive phase. So he's been a huge addition to the squad. I was a little bit skeptical about him. I did always think he's a talented player, and his physique is obviously strong. He's super fast. The couple of things I was worried about was his injuries and his lack of consistency playing over the last years. But he's been immense so far in the first 3 games of the season, and I hope it continues against Inter. But our midfield has been completely revamped, and we look like we did when Kessie was around. Because when Kessie was around, our midfield was pretty dominant. We had Krunic as an attacking midfielder, Kessie and Benacer. So now we've brought our physique back. And that was probably one of the major things that we were lacking last season against Inter Milan in the semifinals. So our next game against Inter is going to be very important to show us where we actually stand this season, because Inter obviously is a favorite to win the league. So are we at this point. So we'll see. This is a huge test for the new team. On top of that, Giroud has started the season off perfectly as well. Mind you, most of his goals have came from penalties, and that on its own can be overlooked a bit, but it's not like he doesn't do anything all game. He's very available during the game. He's playing a lot of 1-2s with Pulisic and also with Leão, but he's been a great focal point and a great striker to drag the center backs towards him to allow Leão and Pulisic to attack in more one-on-one situations. Pulisic on his own, coming in from the right side and adding in another attacking threat from the right, has allowed Leão to open up and play more freely from the left. And the pressure from Leao's shoulders has actually been lifted a bit, because now the rest of our team is putting in the work when it comes to offense. And on top of that, the depth, we haven't even seen the depth of our team yet. We do see Okafor and Chukwueze and stuff come into the game, but they're not even warmed up yet. Expect AC Milan to be a very big threat this season, especially if we stay healthy. Even with the Champions League games, with our depth, we should be able to make a great run both domestically and internationally. Now, just to quickly touch on that Champions League, we are in the group of death once again. Right before the draw, I said there's a possibility that we can have Newcastle in our group with 2 strong opponents from pot 1 and pot 2. And surely enough, we got PSG. We have Borussia Dortmund, who basically threw the league away last season in the last game of the year in the Bundesliga. I don't know if you guys paid attention to that, but essentially they had to beat a mid-table team to win the league, and they ended up tying at the last minute. And also Newcastle United. Newcastle, obviously, everybody knows, have been splashing the cash with the new Saudi investment fund, and they have been very dangerous in the Premier League. So far this year, they've started slow, but I don't think that's evidence, and that's really like their full potential as a team. It is going to be one of the hardest Champions League groups to get out of. However, the confidence boost that I think AC Milan and our team will get just to get out of that Champions League group is going to be huge. If we make it past this group, which I think we will, I think the team is going to be much more confident and much more ready for the rest of the knockout stages. And I do think that we can make another push and go far in the Champions League once again this year. Again, once the rest of our team, especially the bench players, start warming up and getting more miles into their legs, I do think that the team is going to be running perfectly like a well-oiled engine, like they like to say in sports. Moving on from there, the Rafael Leão's goal obviously was so far one of the best goals of this season. The bicycle kick, he was holding the defender on his back and leaned in all awkwardly, still got the kick in and scored at the bottom corner. The last 2 games from Rafael Leão have been amazing. I think he still has one more level to go from there. It's not even his full potential right now. He still has much more to show, which I think he will as the games go on. But right now, great showing, good performance. He's been a big threat both the last 2 games, and hopefully it continues against Inter Milan. One alarming factor, though, is our defense. Now, mind you, Malik Thiaw, he's been wonderful so far every single game of the season. Like I said, previous episode, it looks like the center back position is his and everyone else is playing for second. But Tomori, his performances have been alarming. I don't know, maybe it's because he's playing with Maguire in England and catching a couple of pointers from Maguire and coming back and using these in Milan, but he's honestly not been showing his best performances. Even towards the end of last year, Tomori, he would have one great game and then he'd follow up with a blunder, and he was like all over the place positionally, not confident on the ball. And once again, he's doing some of the same things. He got a red card this game, so now against Inter Milan, we won't have Tomori. And it's just due to lack of concentration, and he's been all over the place even with his tackle. He's looking clumsy so far this season, and it looks like there's space there for Kalulu to step up and show that he can start. Because right now, that second center back position is definitely not Tomori's to keep. So let's see if Kalulu can step up and make a nice partnership with Tomori, because it's not really promising what we're seeing on the defensive phase overall this season. One player that I must mention on our defensive end, though, is Calabria. With our new system, like I mentioned earlier, where the left and the right back are both attacking, with that new system, Calabria has been shining. He's been able to adjust and play more like a defensive midfield role, and he's been supplying nice passes to our wingers, to our attackers. Obviously, we don't expect Calabria to play like Theo Hernandez and attack the goal, but he's been doing very well, sliding into the midfield, helping out the midfield, coming back on defense. He's had so far a very steady few games, and he's been improving every single game with this system. I hope it does continue, and I do the system right now. But again, our biggest challenge is going to be Inter Milan right now. Last year in the semifinals, we played right into what they were doing, which is essentially they were waiting for us to high press and counterattacking us with 2-3 passes and then dominating us that way all game. So now with this press that we're doing with additional players in the midfield, let's see if we can hold Inter Milan back. Again, if Pioli does high press against Inter Milan, I am afraid that they're going to provide a perfect counter-attacking game, which is their strength. However, the press that we're applying now is a bit different from last season. We do allow less space, but like I mentioned in the first game review, even Bologna was able to transfer the ball to the other side of the field and attack us and counterattack us from the opposite side of the field. So we did improve on that in the second and the third game. If we continue to improve against Inter Milan, then I think we can shut them down. But it's going to be very dangerous if our press is not super tight. Then Inter Milan is going to tear us apart with the counterattack. So I do hope that this packed midfield of Loftus-Cheek, Reinders, and Krunic, added in with Theo Hernandez and Calabria right into the midfield, can crowd the midfield a bit and not allow Inter Milan to attack us so easily. But we'll see how that goes in the coming game. One player I do want to mention also against Roma, Okafor came in as a substitute, and he did show a lot of great movement. I must say, I do see the spark in him. He's not really been doing wonderful so far this season, but he's only seen a few minutes, and depending on how Giroud's injury goes, he might be actually able to start in the next game. Right now, it's looking like Giroud might not start, and we have 3 options between Jovic, Pulisic, and Okafor starting in the middle. And if Pulisic obviously starts in the middle in like more of that false 9 type of situation, then we're going to see Chukwueze on the right. Let's see how it goes. Congratulations again to the team for winning against Roma. That's obviously one of our top 4 contenders and one of our biggest rivals of the season. That in itself is a huge win. The game against Inter Milan is going to be immense for the rest of the season, especially for the team confidence. It is going to be tough because our team is much newer than theirs, especially the starting lineup. Their core team has pretty much came back. They're missing Brozovic. Lukaku wasn't really starting too much last season, but Dzeko was. And Thuram has shown that he's actually pretty good. I did doubt him a lot during the summer because he does miss a lot of chances, but so far for Inter, he's actually been playing pretty good. So let's see how we do next game. Congratulations on the Roma win, and let's hope AC Milan continues. Once again, everyone, Red and Blacks TV on all platforms, Instagram, TikTok, anywhere you find podcasts on audio. And I would like to have a couple of fans join me on this show soon. So if you do happen to listen and you want to join me on an episode to even discuss one of the games, feel free to reach out at redandblackstv@gmail.com, or you can send us a message on Instagram directly, DM us. Would love to have a show and a chat with someone else about the game and see what their opinions are and not just my own. Feel free to reach out. Once again, 5 stars everywhere. Subscribe on YouTube. Thanks again, everyone.